Sure, I'm feeling empty in the old brain basket. And I really need a new mechanic. Oh. Hey, this might work. No, not that. And definitely not that. Ooh, this one's perfect. The developers must have been a real masochist to want to code something like this. The Portal rune is one of the more complicated late-game runes that you can get in my game. When you compare this to one of the first runes, the first rune being you can make stuff rotate, and this rune being you can make something a portal to walk through, there's a bit more level of complexity in them. What does it do? If you cast a spell with the Portal rune in that spell's combination, whatever the spell hits, along with any other object of the spell, will also make the object turn into a portal. Portals are color-coded. You will have a red portal or a blue portal. If you walk through the red portal, you come out of the blue portal. If you walk in the blue portal, you come out of the red portal. And if you cast a portal on a third object, the portal will just be removed from the first object that has a portal and be cast on the newer object. So it's like a cycling system. The first portal is set up, the second portal is set up. When the third portal is set up, the first portal is removed, and the third portal becomes the new second portal, and the second portal becomes the new first portal. It's just like a list that knocks the first one off the list, and it puts the new one on the list, and the second becomes the new. You've seen lists before. Let's go over how objects are actually teleported with the portals, because some of you may be asking the obvious question: since any object in my game can become a portal, and since any object in my game can be altered in a wide variety of ways, how do you track the exit position and the entrance position of each portal to correspond to another portal? For example, if you have a gigantic rock and you walk into this and it's portal A, and you walk into a tiny rock, how do you find the exit position relative to the second object, relative to where you walked into it on the first object? Well, I'll tell you, and it involves mathematics. So when any object touches a portal, we're going to find out the corresponding position it touched the portal. We're going to completely ignore the actual size of the portal that has been hit, and we're just going to simplify it into a box. This is going to be essentially just the bounding box of the collider, so we're just taking all the colliders of the portal object and we're just drawing a box around this. And this is what we're going to run for the logic of the portal we had touching. What we're then going to do is we're going to find a vector 3, which is a sequence of 3 numbers that corresponds to our position coordinates on this object. So 0 would correspond to the leftmost wall, 1 would correspond to the rightmost wall, 0 on the y-axis would correspond to the bottom, 1 would correspond to the top, and 0 on the z-axis would correspond to the back, and 1 would correspond to the front. So at a value of 0, 1, 0, this is the back top corner. We're then going to find the collider for the portal it's going to be sent to, and we're again going to, instead of using its collider, we're going to calculate a box which encompasses its collider shape. We're going to take the coordinates that we got from our first portal, and we're going to apply these coordinates to our second portal. We're also going to flip these because if you go into the left side of one portal, you should come out of the right side of the other portal because that's what makes the most sense. And then we just find the position of the new portal based on the coordinates that we have been given. So if we have a 1 on the x-axis, this means that it's going to be the rightmost wall of the portal. We're going to find the rightmost wall of the portal we're being sent to, and we're going to place our new objects there. That is the very basics of moving around with portals, but there are a couple interesting nuances to how this system works. One of these nuances is scaling. I have a spell that can grow an object. I have a spell that can shrink an object. These have 3 different ways they can influence a portal. One of these ways is what if the object going into the portal has been scaled. All we do in this sense is when we check for the collision on the object exiting the portal, we're going to accommodate for the object's scaled size. That's the most simple one, but what if you use scaling on a portal in some way? If you were to make the exit portal way bigger than the entrance portal, surely the object going into the entrance portal is going to become larger when coming out of the exit portal. Originally, I completely forgot to account for this scaling mechanic, and then my darling wife, whom I love, playtested the game and suggested, hey, shouldn't the portals scale things if the portals are much larger or smaller than the one they're teleporting to? And I thought, wow, that's a really good idea, I should have done that. So I added that to the game. Obviously, this is not really a particularly difficult thing to add to the game because I already have the logic for scaling objects. Instead of doing it over time as you would if the object was hit by a magical spell, I just do it instantly, and then I accommodate the exit position from the portal to be relative to the collider change in size. So the player has to be having an offset from the portal so they're not intersecting it when they teleport. If they are changed in size when exiting or entering the portal, their offset will be also changed in size. So at larger sizes there'll be a bigger offset, at smaller sizes there will be a smaller offset. Realistically, there's not actually a whole lot to do with this changing in size mechanic. All that I really need to accommodate for is a little alteration in offset size and a little alteration in collider hitbox size. An interesting nuance of this is, let's say this collision where the portal is going to teleport you to. If the portal teleports you and also shrinks you, then we're actually going to ignore this collision because your shrinking size has meant that the collision is not going to happen anymore. So you can be teleported into smaller gaps by making the teleported object you're walking into much bigger. So your exit portal is going to be smaller and is going to shrink you and let you fit in small tight gap. Here's another wacky thing you can do in my game. My game's wacky, it's weird, it's crazy. What if you cast a portal on yourself? Another player becomes a portal and can teleport things whenever they touch it. Why would you ever want to use this mechanic? I'm honestly not particularly sure. I haven't planned most of the puzzles yet, but I'm sure it will be useful at some point. All I really have to do for this situation is add the portal collider to the player to correspond to their player collider, as I would do with every portal, and have things teleport as normal. A fun visual effect for this, because the player has to be able to be a portal while in every other state. So I could either redraw every single state that the player has with also a portal variant, which would... I'm not doing that, so instead I actually have a system to make a visual for the player's effect. I have an alternate shader for the player collider if they have the portal enabled, and then I have two duplicates of the player's rendered plane, which is what their visuals are. Then I have one of these in front and one of these behind the player. If they are the A portal, they are going to be blue. If they are the B portal, they're going to be red. And then they have a nice little glow effect, and this means that this can just be applied over every single visual possible in the game for the player. They have this visual of glowing, and they can be a portal while also everything else I've drawn for them. Next we have the portal area of effect. The area of effect spell is a spell that will cast a spell on any object that comes into collision with it. So if you walk into it and it has rise, it's going to make you rise upwards as you walk into the object. The area of effect when a portal is actually going to make the area itself a portal. So this is making a gigantic bubble portal. Very fun for teleporting mass amounts of objects and very fun for breaking the mechanics of my game. The actual collision data for the portal area is a little bit different than the collision data I've had for everything else. Before, I had the weird square geometry thing, but it doesn't really work very well with spheres. So if the collider for the portal is a sphere, which is only ever used in two situations, and one of them is the one we're talking about and the other one is stupid and we'll get to, I will, instead of using the regular calculations, I will find the direction the object has hit into the portal. So if they're to the left, it's to the left. If it's to the right, it's to the right. And I will apply this direction to the portal they're exiting to, multiplied by the radius of the portal they're exiting to if it's a sphere, and just in the direction it's exiting to. So this means that the position data is being plotted on a sphere rather than a grid cube. Now I know what you're all thinking, and don't worry, I'm a step ahead of you. What if you cast a player, area, and portal spell all at once? Now of course this would make an area of effect that is attached to the player and is also a portal. This part's very organic and very logical, but now what if you were to cast a portal effect on the player? Now this should make the player also become Portal, while they have a gigantic portal attached to them, meaning every object that is going to be touched by the portal is going to be teleported to the player at the center of the portal, which is then in turn colliding with the portal and teleporting back to the player, and so on and so forth, infinitely. And this is a bit of a problem, and don't worry, I thought of it after I did it and realized it crashed the game. In this instance, if the player already has a portal attached to them, or if a portal is going to be attached to the player and they are already a portal, meaning they would just be an infinite collision of portals, I'm just going to remove the portal from whatever is the oldest portal. Realistically, not a thing that's going to happen in the game unless the player thinks of it and really wants to try and break the game, but this is just one of those systems where I have to account for this and remove a funny thing the player can do because it just will not work in the game. I wonder what that other sphere-shaped portal could be. It's if the player becomes a snowball while they're a portal. They become a snowball portal. This grows as they grow with the portal. A fun little quirk of this is as the player grows in size with their snowball growing in size. You should watch the last devlog if you want to know about snowballs. Then they can suck up way more things that they are touching with their snowball. I think this is very fun to play around with, but it is significantly less practical and way more chaotic than the regular portals. Next we have a little fun quirk I have for this system. This is essentially if there is collision at one side of the portal, but the portal doesn't have collision at the other side of that portal. If this happens, the portal itself will actually be moved along its path and have force applied to it as an object is exiting it. Essentially the way I figured this would be visualized is that the object is exiting the portal, it's pushing against whatever the collision is, and this push is actually pushing back the portal it is exiting from. This applies some level of force and pushes the exit portal further along the path where there is an open collision for it to be, and it just moves it away from wherever the exit portal is. I'm not sure how readable this is, but I do quite like this as a way of accounting for the excessive amount of collision that there could be, and makes it so you can keep using a portal even if it's pushed against the wall. You just have an object come out of it and it pushes it against the wall. I think this could be having some very interesting uses in puzzles where you can actually maneuver a portal around in this weird way by making objects come out of it in such a convoluted, confusing way. Maybe a portal navigating a maze and then it gets to the end and can teleport an object back out from the other side of the maze that the player can't get into. But realistically, it is just a ease of use for if the player really wants to teleport something but there is collision at the other end. It's accounted for, and it makes it a bit more fluid and organic to actually use portals. Next we have duplicating portals. I added a spell that makes things duplicate. I haven't talked about it yet because we're out of sync with devlog and development, but there's a spell that can duplicate objects. I'll make a video about it eventually, don't worry about it. But what happens if you duplicate a portal? There is a couple instances in which this is used. If you duplicate a portal and there is no other portal in existence, then the new object being duplicated is going to itself be a portal, but we're just going to switch the collider information to be a new portal. So in logic of coding, we're just removing the portal visual, removing portal colliders, and we're adding this to the duplicated object. But if there's already two portals in the scene, we can't have a third portal, so if you duplicate an object while there is already two portals in the scene, the original version of the object will stop being a portal and the new duplicate version will be the new portal. I could have made this either way around. I could have made the new duplicate version not a portal or whatever, but I felt like when I was making it, the most organic, makey sensey version to me is that the new duplicate version is a portal and that portal logic is removed from the original. Anyway, look forward to the duplication devlog. Never! Another mechanic in the bag, on the board. Let's see what mechanic I'll be working on next. Hello. It's the end of the devlog. It's the rambly section at the end of the devlog where Alice gets to talk about the mechanic and I don't write down what I'm going to say. Oh, it's like one of my old devlogs again. I think this portal mechanic's really fun. I love testing for it, I love playing around with it. It is really fun. I'm actually Generally, it's one of those mechanics where, when I make it, I'm a little apprehensive to use it when playing around and testing in the game because I feel like whenever I use it, something goes wrong. But nothing goes wrong. Surprisingly, the portal mechanic is one of the more consistent and good mechanics in my game. Not to say the other ones are janky and terrible, but generally, if I make a portal mechanic in the game, I expect it to be janky and terrible. But it's not. I really nailed it with this one. The portal mechanic is one of the more complicated, weird, game-breaking, exploiting mechanics I have, and that's why it's one of the late game ones. But I'm a huge fan of how it works and how it functions. I think its synergy and interest with some of the other mechanics in the game, like the area of effect mechanics, for example, is really, really fun. I also really like that my game is at the point where when I add a new mechanic, I'm constantly thinking, well, how will this work with this other mechanic I have added, and how will this work with some future mechanics I have planned, and oh, what if I made a puzzle like this with this mechanic, or what if I made a puzzle with that with this mechanic, and this really opens up a whole lot of other fun ideas I can use with this mechanic. Like, oh, what if I make an NPC object? You can do that now, you can make objects NPCs, like, yeah, not important. What if I made an NPC object that tracks the player and is also a portal and also has magnetics attached to it, so it pulls everything into it as it walks towards them and then teleports them away to another portal which has a floating element attached to it, so it's in the sky and those dropped and rained down on the original portal. What if I made that system? What if I did that? And that's just a thing you can do in the game. Does it help you in any way? No, but it's funny to do it. The game is at a point now where I think it is the silliest little game ever made, and I love it. Thank you for watching. This is my devlog. The end.